Hello everybody, it's Fufu here, and today I'm going to do a video all about the Pokemon Lumineon. I really like this Pokemon. I think it's an awesome concept and design for a Pokemon. I think before this we were really missing a tropical fish, a luminous fish. I think it's so fantastic. And also the little detail about its fins walking along the bottom of the ocean. I think that's really cool. But what I think is a big shame is that this Pokemon is barely ever seen in competitive play nowadays, which is so sad. And that's because it is kind of mediocre as it is, but I think there are so many reasons why it should be so much better. So I'm going to talk about 5 reasons why Lumineon should be better in battle in this video. But first, let's look back a little bit to see the history of this Pokemon in competitive. In Generation 4, the generation when it was released and presumably should have been celebrated the most, there was really nothing that it could do better than any other Pokemon. It did get the new ability Storm Drain, but so did Gastrodon that was released in the same generation, and Gastrodon is bulkier, it gets Recover, and just was a better Pokemon for being a bulky water type overall. So from day 1 it was really missing out. Generation 5 gave it Scald, but all the other water Pokemon got Scald too, so that didn't really help too much. However, Generation 6 in X and Y it did get a little niche, because it learns Defog, and in Generation 6 this became able to get rid of entry hazards, which are a big aspect of singles competitive play. Because Lumineon already had access to U-turn also, it was a relatively decent pivot Pokemon with the water immunity. It could U-turn, it could get the Defog off, so it was pretty neat in that respect. But even this has now been removed because in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, Silvally got access to Defog. Obviously Silvally can also be a water type if it holds a water memory, and it has not only U-turn but parting shot also, so it's got better momentum options, it's bulkier, it's faster, and it's even stronger in terms of offensive presence, because Lumineon, the main issue with it is it's quite weak offensively. So Lumineon really finds it hard nowadays to find a role to play on a team that couldn't be played better by a different Pokemon. So here are my 5 ways that Lumineon could be improved to be a much better Pokemon and so much more viable. The first one is kind of boring. We're going to look at the stats. I think that this would be a pretty boring way to make this Pokemon better because there are some much more interesting suggestions. But just to look at the stats at first, Lumineon does have underwhelming stats. Its speed stat is its only decent stat, and even then it's not particularly good. There are lots of faster Pokemon, so that's one thing. And then its bulk, though it's alright and it can take hits and pivot out, it's not a wall, it can't take hits for days. It's pretty much got no offense. Those offensive stats are really not going to be doing very much at all. So to improve Lumineon without changing its role too much or without changing the overall shape of its stats, I think it could really do with a big speed boost so that it's outspeeding even more Pokemon. It could switch in and then U-turn out before it has to take any more hits. I think that would be the most important thing. I think a little boost in its defenses would also help, but I don't think it would be appropriate to make it this really tanky Pokemon. It is a frail-ish looking fish, though it does perform that defensive role a bit, so it needs a bit of bulk. So I think a little bit of a bulk boost would be nice, but I don't think boosting its offenses would seem right with the Pokemon. It would change its role a bit, and even if you did boost its offenses, there are better offensive water Pokemon out there. There are so many water Pokemon, it's hard for them to find a niche, and a lot of them are already really strong. So I don't think boosting either of its attacking stats would be too necessary, although maybe a little bit of a boost in one or the other would help. The second way, which I think would be a bit more interesting and would make sense, would be to change its typing, or to give it an additional secondary typing. So at the moment it's pure water type, which is actually a really good defensive typing as it is, but what would make it even better would be to give it a water fairy typing. That fairy secondary typing can be so helpful. Now why would this make sense? The fairy typing is actually linked quite frequently to light, and especially Moonlight or Starlight. And in Lumineon's Dex description, it says they traverse the deep waters as if crawling over the seafloor. The fantastic lights on its fins shine like stars in the night sky. So there is the link between the lights, the luminous fins, and the night sky, which is a big thing for fairy typing. So I could see this Pokemon definitely having that fairy typing. How it would help is Fairy type pairs very well with water typing. Fairies are weak to steel, and the water typing resists steel, so you don't get one of the extra weaknesses that fairy typing will bring. You only get one extra in poison, so one extra weakness, but then you gain a resistance to fighting, to bug, to dark, and not only that, you gain an immunity to dragon. So that would be so helpful, and we already see a lot of water fairy types performing very well competitively. Some examples are Tapu Fini, Azumarill, and Primarina, who all are very good competitive Pokemon. Giving Lumineon this typing with some extra resistances and an immunity would help it so much in its pivot role, being able to switch in on a few more attacks and then pivot out to help your team. This Water Fairy typing would be quite a drastic change for Lumineon, and I'm not exactly sure that it warrants such a drastic change. The Water typing is actually pretty good as it stands, so Water Fairy, though it would be a big boost, it may not be necessary. The next 3 reasons that I'm going to talk about are all moves that I think Lumineon should be able to learn that would help it out so much in the roles that it tries to play. The first move is probably the least game-changing move for Lumineon, and that is Whirlwind. So in the role that it's trying to perform at the moment, where it pivots in, it gets its defog off, it can scold Pokemon that might want to set up rocks, but the issue is other Pokemon can switch in on Lumineon and try to set up. It really struggles breaking its substitutes, and if a Pokemon has a setup move, Lumineon is really going to struggle being able to punish them for setting up. I think Lumineon should learn Whirlwind. Now, this I think would make a lot of sense because Lumineon does have these big wafting fins, and it already learns a wind-based move. One of the first moves that Finneon and Lumineon know is Gust. Their big fins can whip up winds to cause damage. I think that this could be good enough reasoning to provide Lumineon with Whirlwind. What Whirlwind would allow Lumineon to do would be to punish any Pokemon that tried to set up on it. If they tried to get a Dragon Dance or a substitute, you can just blow them away and you don't have to worry about that. It would make Lumineon's passive offensive stats much less of an issue because you can just not worry about Pokemon setting up in your face. So I think that would be really useful, but it's not really game changing. It just helps out in the role that it already plays. The next move that I'm going to suggest actually pairs with the fairy typing that I mentioned earlier, and that move is Moonlight. So Moonlight is a fairy type move, and it's also a recovery move. Currently, Lumineon has no form of reliable recovery outside of rest, which isn't very helpful. Because this Pokemon wants to switch in on attacks and then pivot out, you will be taking damage over time, and Lumineon won't necessarily be around for the whole battle. Whereas Moonlight would drastically change that. It would make Lumineon a relatively reliable switch into certain Pokemon, and you can keep it around for as long as you need to ensure that any entry hazards remain off the field, you can check the Pokemon you need, and it's always healthy. So I think that would be a really nice way to give Lumineon a recovery move. And we've already mentioned how Moonlight would work because of the links to the night sky, the starlights from its fins. I think Moonlight would make a lot of sense thematically too. Lumineon's design may well be based off the freshwater butterfly fish, but the design itself actually takes much more inspiration from butterflies themselves, with those big wing-like fins. There are obviously a number of butterflies already in Pokemon, and some of them are very potent Pokemon. So looking at these butterfly Pokemon, what makes them so potent? Well, it's one move, and that move is a fantastic setup move, Quiver Dance. Quiver Dance allows the user to boost its speed and its special attack all in one, making it a much better sweeper, but also boosts its special defense, meaning that it's that bit harder to revenge kill. Why this would be so good for Lumineon is Lumineon would then be the only water-type Pokemon to have access to Quiver Dance, immediately giving it a niche that no other Pokemon has. Though its stat distribution doesn't immediately leap out as a sweeper, I think Lumineon would be a really cool candidate for this move because it does have decent enough speed to use it, and it could be a more bulky Quiver Dancer, which is a really neat set to be able to use. Because you're getting those special defense boosts, if you make this Pokemon more defensive, then you're going to be able to get more and more boosts, your special attack will get higher and higher, and the opponent will really struggle to take you down. I think that this is a really cool way of using Quiver Dance, because normally you see it on relatively frail Pokemon that just try to get that initial boost off and try to sweep. Lumineon is a Pokemon that could potentially get more Quiver Dances off and boost its relatively low starting special attack to higher special attack standards, so you could hit really hard. I would love to see this happen. It would transform Lumineon, it would immediately make it a much more attractive prospect in team building, and I think that a lot of people would start to use it. So there you have it. Those are my 5 suggestions to make Lumineon better and more usable for all the people that want to use it. I've only done this video because I appreciate Lumineon so much. I know that you can use it as it is, and it does function in some roles pretty well, but there are generally other Pokemon that can do it better, which is really frustrating for me because I like Pokemon to have a niche, to have something that they can do better than anything else. Let me know what you think of Lumineon, let me know what you think of my suggestions, and please let me know what you think of this video. If you like this video, please leave a like, because I'm considering doing more videos like this in the future, and it will be good to know that there's an audience for them. Having said all that, that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. I've been foofootoo, you've been awesome, and hopefully see you next time. Goodbye.